old guy. I'm really an old guy. I started in this business in 1970, the age of 17. First station I worked at was the ABC affiliate in Phoenix, Arizona. Okay, somewhere between my junior and senior high school. I walk in. It's just circumstances. I tell kids being in the right place at the right time, being able to use the English language properly, and being African American got my foot in the door. The FCC was cracking the whip. Started opening those doors for minority representation. Now in Arizona, I moved there from New York in 1961. The state population of African Americans was 2%. The whole state, 2%. Okay. 9 years later, I'm the first African American television news reporter in the entire state of Arizona. Just through circumstance and opportunity and presenting myself and whatever. I'm on the job for 3 months, and my assignments were, and they never really taught me how to do the job. I walked in one day, they handed me a camera and said, go out and cover that story. Which back then, late 60s, right around there, basically the only people you saw on TV were white males. Humphrey Brinkley, Walter Cronkite, John Chancellor. You never saw African Americans, you never saw Hispanics, Asians. You saw very few women, quite frankly. It was just a real white male fraternity. So now we're starting to open up the door. So every day, my assignment is to go out and shoot my own story, come back, write the story. Hot splice, we're using film, videotape wasn't invented by then, kind of a thing. But every day about 12:30, our sports director, never forget his name, a guy named Tommy Thompson. And Tommy was from Arkansas, okay? And about 12:30 every day, Tommy would come to me and he says, hey, young fella, you mind running down to this little restaurant that was pretty close to the station that we would grab a quick bite to eat for lunch and get back because it was close. About 12:30 every day, and Tommy said, hey, would you mind running down and grabbing my lunch for me and bringing it? I'm thinking, I'm 17, I don't have any formalized training in broadcasting. I'm trying to fit in, I'm trying to be a team player. So, yeah, sure, Tommy, right, okay. So this is going on for a couple of months. Finally, my program director calls me into his office one day and he says, young man, what's this I hear you're not getting your assignments done on time? Okay, and I'm thinking, well, and I said to him directly, I said, well, I have no problem getting them done on time if Tommy didn't come to me every day and have me go get his lunch. Okay? And he says to me, and the station manager's name was Chuck Lance, Jewish guy. Okay? He says, he's doing what? You sit right there. And he got on the phone and he says, have Tommy Thompson come to my office. Okay? So I'm sitting there, 17-year-old kid now. Tommy Thompson comes in, he's shocked to see me sitting there in the program director's office. And Chuck Lance, the program director, says, what is I hear you're just having this young man go out and get your lunch every day for you? It's holding up his work. To which Tommy Thompson said to the program director, with me sitting right here, what's the problem? He's just a nigger. Oh. Just like that. It's like, oh my goodness, no. And everything I could do not jump out the chair and, because I'm from New York. I wasn't playing that, right? But I kept my composure, what have you. To which Chuck Lance said to our sports director, you know what? I want you to, excuse my language, I want you to pack up your shit and get out. You're fired. Wow. Just like that. Just like that. So I had advocates. Not only was the ownership of the station allowed me to be the first African American TV news reporter in the entire state, but they weren't having it. They were serious about integrating the business. But you run into those kind of things along the way. So as your growth process comes, you can imagine there were no African Americans in the entire building except for me. So trying to convince them to have a black perspective or the importance of covering black stories, they had no idea. That's where I came in. That's where I opened them up and helped to expose them to the black community in Phoenix. Because they, number one, they were afraid to go into the black community to cover the stories. They didn't know anybody black. They didn't have no contacts with black churches, the NAACP, the Urban League, whatever, things like that, whereas I've been exposed. By the way, my dad was one of the first black police officers in the city of Phoenix, and my mom, we picketed a Woolworths 5 and 10 in downtown Phoenix to get her to be the first African-American sales clerk in all of downtown Phoenix. So we came in from New York just barnstorming, man. We're raising hell and what have you that. But you move forward several years. Now, Dre, you worked in St. Louis. I worked in St. Louis, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what did I step into when I left Arizona to go to St. Louis? I mean, it truly was the South. I was covering Ku Klux Klan rallies and American Nazi Party rallies, and they were getting permits to march. They were getting permits to march in St. Louis. They used to have a program called the Veiled Prophet Ball in St. Louis. And this was a segregated beauty pageant that they would have a parade through the city of St. Louis. Blacks were not allowed to be in the parade. Weren't allowed to be in the parade. And it wasn't until one year, I think, the winner was when they were crowned, somebody ran up another white person ran up and threw a bucket of blood on this person, and they decided, oh, I guess maybe we should look at what we're doing here. And I don't even think they have it anymore, do they, Dre?
They have the veil profit parade, but it's not segregated.
It's not segregated
They
anymore.
call it the VP parade.
We're talking about the 1970s. You know, mid-1970s. It's not like, 50 years ago, kind of thing. So I worked in St. Louis 75, 78, came here in 1978, and do you know what? To what you were saying, okay? I was one of the, I came in about a year after this organization was formed, and one of the very first issues that we took on with the Baltimore Association of Black Journalists was how black people were portrayed in the media, both the newspaper and TV. Habitually, what they were doing, there'd be a crime story. They really had not much information about suspects. It was typical in the end of that copy, police are looking for 3 black males. That's it. That's it. They didn't understand how you were indicting an entire community by giving such little information. It's in the business now, we call that laziness. You didn't do your homework to get real information. I mean, if you can't tell me height, weight, the distinguishing tattoos, what they were dressed, I don't want to hear just 3 black males. So we picketed the Baltimore Sun. We met with the management of this station, WJZ, WMAR-TV, Channel 45, and said, no, we're not having it anymore. By this time, you're starting to get African Americans in significant positions where we could go to the management and voice our objections. For example, I was the first African American male anchor at this station back in 1978. It took that long. But we could go in and say, no, this is not right. And fortunately, they heard us. Now, whether they are still adhering to that and doing it right, I'm not sure. Periodically, I still see stories in print and on TV. Just about a month and a half ago, and I was very disappointed in this. There was a black female TV reporter here in town who edited the story, police are looking for 3 black males. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, 40 years has gone by and we're... And as a black person, I was disappointed because here's another black person who somehow felt it was okay to do it. We got away from trying to educate that is not okay to do. I want to talk about, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here when it comes to mugshots and pictures and descriptions of things like that. Being the son of a former cop, okay, where you're actually out there trying to catch bad guys who are murdering people, okay. So how do you go about taking a bad person off the street? You need some help from the community. We hear that in Baltimore all the time. We need the community's help. We need the community's help. But you're limited in what you can put on the air as far as describing a suspect. Okay? So let's start with the mug pictures. Is it appropriate to use mug shots of African Americans if they have committed a crime and they've been arrested? Or is that just off the table? Am I hearing we should not use mug shots?
If it's equal opportunity employment, then I don't think it's an issue to discuss.
There you go.
The conundrum comes with the fact that whenever the assailant or the proposed criminal is a black man, all you need to hear about is the fact that he's a black man, and you see this mugshot. But when it's an officer that's committed some kind of atrocity to one of their own community members, whenever it's some well-to-do white man out in the county that murders his entire family, you see this picture of him holding his family. So in many ways, it seems like a concerted effort amongst media to humanize the criminal as long as they're not a person of color. But if there's a person of color, they're castigated before they're even proven guilty in a court of law.
You're hitting on something. You're absolutely right. Yeah, let me test you. Go ahead.
We should have the police here, because who's releasing those mugshots to us? It's not like we're just inventing them out of thin air or whatever. If they conveniently don't have mugshots for white suspects or people who are charged with crimes or whatever, that's also on them. We're not like, Stan, you can attest to this. We are not picking these mugshots out. We're not inventing these mugshots. These are what we're getting from our sources. So if our sources are not giving us the same thing or whatever, then we need to also have them at the table and have them accountable for that as well, because they're disseminating this information. It's not like we're acting as judge, jury, and executioner. There are other people involved in this process. It's not just the media.
There are, but that doesn't absolve the media. If you want to talk about the police, we got plenty of issues that we can talk about with our fine police department here in Baltimore City. You know what I mean? But if the focus is going to be on media and journalism, as somebody who is also a broadcast journalism major in addition to being an art major, I know that there's certain ethics that are included in the process of being a real journalist. And we're in this time and place where, due to social media and a lot of other different platforms, it seems that everybody's chasing the sensationalized story whenever the opportunity comes. And it just so happens that, for example, there are plenty of photos that we've seen of Darren Wilson, right, in the aftermath of Michael Brown's murder. But in that immediate time period, while that was a national story, you saw the image of him smiling with his badge and his gun. You know what I'm saying? Like, but then the images that you were seeing of Michael Brown had his middle finger up, had a whole bunch of different stuff. Well, now because of platforms like Twitter and Facebook and all this different type of stuff, you actually have regular citizens that are doing more research than actual journalists, because they're able to go out and find the images of the cop being racist, or the cop being, you know what I mean, the cop being in a situation that doesn't have them necessarily cast in the best light. But what's chosen? And I think that in certain images, I mean, in certain situations, that we will literally see journalists and media organizations look for the image that fits the narrative that's being spun.
Yeah, I just want to jump in there because I covered that. I was in St. Louis during Ferguson, and I just want to say that I'm a journalist that I stood up in my newsroom and made sure that we did not show any of those Mike Brown pictures with his middle finger up and gang signs and all that. Matter of fact, I went in, something ran at like 5 o'clock. I was a morning anchor. Something ran at like 5 o'clock in the morning. I actually went into the edit bay and I said, for 6 o'clock, make sure you use this graduation picture, because I'm not gonna sit up on the anchor desk with this volatile, explosive situation going on right now that's polarizing the town. I'm not reading a Mike Brown story with his middle finger up, blurred out or anything like that. I was like, we are gonna make sure that we use his graduation picture just like we would any other child. So that's just one example of, you know, how we, when we're in the room and when we're in the part of the process, how we can affect change. Because we can't, if the police give us a mugshot of somebody who's wanted for murder, we can't not run that mugshot. If we received the mugshot of a white man who was wanted for murder, we would run that mugshot. So we would have to run a mugshot of a black man wanted for murder. However, when we can look at other pictures, when we go to their social media accounts, and when we see pictures of them, throwing up, holding up guns and that sort of thing, and saying F the police and that sort of thing, we can censor that. We can actually be part of the process and say, you know what, we have a lot of pictures of this suspect. Why don't we use the ones where he's wearing the golf shirt and not the ones where he's like, holding up an AK-47 and wearing camouflage and that sort of thing. So that's how we can at least try to balance.
I'm curious, how much resistance did you meet at KMOV when you raised that and said, hey, we're going to use this picture, not those pictures? How much resistance from the management there?
I didn't get any resistance.
That's good.
I mean, I don't. I had been there for a while, and and I'm not bragging or whatever, but I carried a lot of respect in that. So when I raised my concerns, I was listened to and I was heard, and they complied. As a matter of fact, they were like, you know what? Wow, we didn't even see it. We didn't even realize. A lot of times when you raise the issue, the people were like, oh, you know what? We didn't even think about it that way. It didn't even occur to us.
And it might not have. That genuinely can. I've been in situations where it's literally just somebody's knee-jerk reaction to view a person in a certain way or cast them in a certain light. But as you said, I think that, for one, I don't think it's enough that just we're in the room. Because I've seen plenty of examples, if we're really going to talk about it, of us being in the room and not saying anything when it happens. Because we're afraid of how that might affect our future career plans and opportunities. And yeah, I know that, it sounds odd, me saying that, being the guy, all right, I played in the NFL for some time, so, I got a little bit of security, so I'm a little bit less afraid of losing my job than, the average person would be. But we have to get to a point where if we're going to be the only one in the room, something has to be said. Somebody has to be there fighting for us.